This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. Your war room for insider news and draft analysis from deep within the confines of Cowboys headquarters at the Star in Frisco.
Today is Tuesday, January 30th, and we are 86 days away from the NFL Draft in Detroit, Michigan. Welcome into the Draft Show presented by Miller Lite, live from the SWBC studio here at the Star in Frisco. It is All-Star Game Week inside these buildings, inside these walls, and then out in Mobile, Alabama as well. We've got the Shrine Bowl in town and the Senior Bowl underway. Practices starting this morning from Alabama. We have Nick Harris out there. We'll talk to him in a moment. But inside the studio, we've got Bobby Belt, Zach Wolchuk, Brian Broaddus, Aisha Morrison. I'm Kyle Yeomans. This is an exciting time of year. Brian, I mean, you look at the prospects, you get to look at the film, you get to look at all of this information that just is flooding in at this point.
Yeah, and what we do is we've all studied the tape, and now you get to see the body types, and now you get to see the movements and stuff live. And that's the one thing that really helps you when you're evaluating these players. That's where these scouts go on the road all year long. What are they doing? They're going to practices, they're watching the tape in the morning, they're catching the practice in the afternoon, they're getting body types, they're getting shapes, they're getting movements, they're getting all these things. So it's been this is one of the best times to kind of fill in. You're not going to see all the guys, but you're going to get an idea of some of the top ones in the country, and I think that'll help. And then you get to the combine, and you'll see even more movement skills, and that will kind of like, okay, I watched a tape the other day. Penn State was playing Michigan. Oh, I saw him do this. Yep, he could do that. I remember, the short shuttle, he's quick doing that. Yeah, that makes so everything kind of comes together for you when you get to this point.
It's a lot of fun, Aisha. You've been out at this Shrine Bowl this past week, getting your eyes on players. Yeah. Got the rosters in front of you and everything.
Y'all, don't blame me.
How has it been out there, though?
No, it's been cool. I enjoyed the Shrine Bowl just because I think you find some players there that, maybe haven't gotten a whole bunch of looks and maybe haven't gotten the most attention. But when you look at a guy like Wanye Thomas, who was in the Shrine Bowl, and we talk about, we think he's one of the more up-and-coming players on this roster. It's a dope opportunity for some of these guys to get looks, and it's the best on the best. You know what I'm saying? And that's when you find out who's really the best, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Those are 1v1s, man. That's what it's all about. And I think it's fun. We talked last week with Dane about Stiggers, the Canadian football. And
he stood out,
the breakdown, it's been exactly what you saw, right? He's going to go ahead and put his sideline, go square, sideline to the body here. And then he's made some plays on the ball. I mean, 1v1s against some of these. And Frank Gore Jr. is another guy, right? You look at some of these dudes played smaller competition. How are they when they get to match up against a dude that's coming from LSU or Alabama? That type of stuff. Because I think, we might have bumped it, but we're good. We're good.
Yeah, you're back.
Bumped her back. But Frank Gore Jr. is a guy that I was watching last night. Kind of caught my eye because we were going through the Shrine Bowl stuff. He's dominating against the Appalachian states. I mean, we saw a lot of Conference USA football being North Texas Mean Green, but
I felt like he was in school for like 12 years.
He was. And 2 years ago, I went back watched him in 2022.
It's a family tradition
against Miami. And isn't it weird? That one's going to make you feel a little bit old.
Oh yeah.
But he's a guy that I think dominated when he was supposed to, right, at Southern Michigan, some of these lower-level competition. But when you get to see him in these type of environments, these practices, but also going back and watching him against Miami, this dude can just play. I mean, he's got some special elements to his game. Is a little bit smaller, but then when you get to see him in person, I mean, all these things plus the personalities of these guys, I also think is super important. I mean, we talk about that a lot with quarterbacks, but what kind of makes these guys tick, right? How much do they love the game? We've been taking notes. Man, I'm watching this dude play. It seems like he loves the game of football. You're able to tell in person when you actually get to see these dudes.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on Stiggers real quick. I literally wrote down, he don't know no better, so he does it.
Yeah.
Because
he's super raw.
Exactly. And so you see him, and there's times where it looks like he got turned, but his hips are he can flip him so quick, he can recover. He just has a nose for the ball. But I had the opportunity to meet him in interviews on the first day, and he just exudes confidence, y'all. Like he got that chip on his shoulder, guy that maybe everybody doesn't think can really play. But when you look for a corner, that's what you're looking for. And he has like boatloads of it.
He
So
does.
it's been really dope to see his play translate this week in drills and in 7-versus-7.
Well, and size-wise, like I think his arm length kind of stood out as well.
Yeah.
I was like, man,
He
this
has a great build,
It's
dude.
pretty long. You mentioned the recovery ability. That's something too. He's just unique for a guy that hasn't played the sport a ton. He just kind of got these raw instincts that you look for. And I think, I mean, the more he gets to play, the better coaching he gets. The sky seems like the limit for a player like that.
And if DQ's coming back, he
Kind of looks the part.
kind of looks like
You don't have to whisper it. It could happen.
the corners they like.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Fits the mold.
Go ahead. What you got, Bobby?
Very well could happen. No, I really love what Shrine has done and like what Shrine's become. I think Eric Galco's done a fantastic job building that up the way he has. That was kind of an afterthought for a long time, similar to like, they would put it in the same like, oh, okay, you get the NFLPA game, you get the Shrine Bowl. Those aren't going to be nearly as significant as the Senior Bowl. But I mean, they've got some real talent here this week. I mean, they've got Edge Cooper here from Texas A&M. John Brooks is a big one. I think there's just they've done a really good job of kind of stacking things up, and Dallas gets such a huge advantage. I feel like just being able to have that here at home, take advantage of that. Leave for Senior Bowl, run through. It's just this is the marathon sprint right here.
And the offensive line play. We've talked about that the entire time.
Don't get me
It
started.
seems like these offensive linemen. And how about these Dakota schools? I was mentioning that yesterday.
Play good
Talk
football.
about it.
Last year we talked Cody Malk out of North Dakota State. South Dakota State's got some boys this year, man. The offensive line play is just super impressive right now.
Yeah, and hey, that South Dakota State teams won back-to-back national
Sure have.
championships at the FCS level.
Both those schools know this area pretty
Yeah, I was
well.
about to say they're pretty welcome here in Frisco. They've been here a time or two.
They need
but
to pay taxes there so much.
now we're talking about Shrine, and we are going to talk a little bit more about what we've seen this week and what has stuck out. But today was the first practice of the Senior Bowl down in Mobile, Alabama, and one of our very own, Nick Harris, is out in Mobile. He is on the sideline as we speak, and he's also on the phone line as we speak. Ooh, Sam Hartman just completed a really long pass. Nick, what's going on? What are you seeing down there in Mobile?
Yeah, what's going on, fellas? Yeah, just saw that Sam Hartman pass down to Roman Wilson, a Michigan wide receiver down the middle. Yeah, it's looking pretty good out here. We've only been through about an hour of team drills, so really just kind of getting a feel of how these guys move around, the instincts that they kind of have, getting a good feel as they start to get comfortable being in the Senior Bowl environment. But so far, you can definitely tell which of the standouts and which of the guys that we are really looking forward to this week. You can see which ones are popping and which ones are taking a minute to kind of get adjusted. But so far, it's been so good.
Now, you've talked about Jackson Powers Johnson, the center from Oregon, on this show a couple of times. I know earlier in the day you were talking about how much he's already stood out. What's going on with Jackson Powers Johnson, and how is he impressing you so far?
Yeah, he's looked really good, guys. I mean, that strong anchor that, we've been able to see on film and we've been able to see from him in his time at Oregon, both at center, right guard, left guard. He's showing all of that so far today in the one-on-one settings. He was taking a lot of reps at center, but also took a few at right guard, and he didn't lose one rep. It looked really good. I mean, he gets those back feet down in the turf, and he drives forward. It's been really tough to get around him so far. So as I see it right now, probably the most consistent offensive lineman through that first little one-on-one session. Each offensive lineman probably got about 4 or 5 reps. But, so far he's looking really good. He's taken to coaching. And, he just turned 21 a couple of weeks ago. I mean, this is a guy that could be a franchise changer at center, I think, for any franchise that gets him. I'm starting to think it's going to be tough for him to slip to 24 if we're talking Cowboys.
Hey, Nick, I know there needs to be 2 of you to split and watch the practice to cover it the way. But where have you found, the most scouts? Was there huge crowds around the one-on-one with the linemen? Where do you think all the NFL guys are focusing their attention right now?
Yeah, most definitely the linemen. We've talked about this tackle class quite a bit, but also there's some really good interior guys here in Mobile this week. So being able to kind of pair both of those things, that's where you're going to find most of the 32 teams being able to kind of hover around. But also saw them quite a bit with the linebackers group here in this first practice. Here on this team, you got Cedric Gray from North Carolina, Peyton Wilson from North Carolina State, Maris Lewis-Fowl from Notre Dame. We've talked about all 3 of those guys on the show. Scouts have definitely been hanging around those guys as well.
What about the quarterbacks? I think that we talked last week with Dan. You got Bo Nix, you got Michael Penix Jr., but we're watching Sam Hartman now. We were just talking before the show started. Hartman's a guy that there just doesn't seem to be a lot of buzz about right now from Notre Dame.
Yeah, absolutely. And so far, he had that really nice pass across the middle to Roman Wilson earlier. And, he's looked pretty good so far. It's kind of tough to get a full, complete scope of these quarterbacks so far. They've just now started to put the ball through the air as far as routes on air. They were doing one-on-ones with running backs and linebackers a little bit earlier, so more so short to intermediate work. But all three, they've looked good. They're getting adjusted here. I really like what I've seen from Sam Hartman, as you said, and then Michael Penix has had a couple of moments as well.
Nick, the safety position hasn't really gotten any love for real in the last couple seasons, I feel like. Are there any safeties down there that you are interested in looking at and kind of keeping your eye on?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at Cole Bishop out of Utah. He's in this group that I've seen so far here early in the morning. I really like what I see from him. When you talk about being able to kind of identify instincts early on, he's one of them, and they've trusted him in some single high opportunities here in this early practice session. Really like what I've seen from him, and then this DB group as a whole. There's some versatile guys that are kind of around. You're kind of seeing some guys move around. Evan Williams from Oregon, you've seen him line up at safety, come down to nickel. He's done some good work as well, and then Bo Smith-Wade out of Washington State, kind of similar stuff. So yeah, those are some guys I'm definitely looking at in the defensive backfield.
Nick, we appreciate you doing some great work down there in Mobile. We will check back in with you on Thursday. Sounds like there's a lot going on behind you as well. Always fun down there. Enjoy your time. Get some seafood and have a good one.
Thanks, guys. We'll definitely come back on Thursday with some more.
There you go. And there's Nick Harris. He will be back Thursday for the show, but I mean, what a time it is. Brian, you were talking about it a moment ago.
Yeah.
Just every
God,
rep.
I love this.
Every rep matters for these guys.
Yeah, it does. And what's really cool is the NFL, it used to be for my era where the two worst teams in the league were getting to coach, and you almost felt like those guys were being punished, but now you have the way the league has set it up where these young assistant coaches, they're giving them opportunities to be coordinators, a head coach, set a game plan together. I mean, they're giving them great experience. And so their enthusiasm, along with the players' enthusiasm, along with all the buzz with the media and the scouts and stuff in the building, make this just such a fun event for evaluation. I mean, Jim Nagy does a hell of a job picking that team. I mean, this is not just show up the week before and get a bunch of guys together. This is a year-long process. And the way that Nagy puts it together with the help of the scouts and the general managers around the league, that's why Nick Harris is able to talk about 7 or 8 different. And you got some of the top quarterbacks here, throwing in, as I usually would say, good versus good here.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about the Senior Bowl and what we have going forward.
Yeah, and you mentioned there like what Nagy's done with the Senior Bowl and how they grind you around, because that's the thing is that he's turned it into its own scouting organization.
He does. He's got scouts. He's like a 33rd team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, they've had guys hired away from the Senior Bowl in recent years, guys who were on those scouting staffs that now they're area scouts with other teams.
Right.
Like it's been a really good pipeline, not just for talent, but like talent evaluators. And so that's something that I know there's a lot of respect for the feedback that was given in the past. Not to call any names, but in the past, it felt like there was a sense around the league that like there were favors being done at times, or like, oh, you're helping an agent out here, something like that. There's not going to be any of that at the Senior Bowl these days. Jim Nagy is committed to making it like, and he'll take feedback. If they don't grade somebody similarly, if they say, hey, we want to see this guy out there, they get him out there. And so this is always a really good week. I cannot wait to get a chance to look at the practice stuff and get a look at the tape, because there's just a lot, here that we can glean from this week because of the competition and the level of play that's really stepped up in recent years.
Now, we talked about it a little bit last week, just leading into this week, but you've had so many connections around the league. Where do you feel like the hotbed of talent is from a position standpoint at the Senior Bowl? Because everybody views it differently. Dane's going to look at it differently than Brian different than Bobby, but you're hearing stuff from around the league of how these positions line up in Mobile.
Yeah, I think like the common thing that you hear a lot is just how deep the offensive line class is just around, the entire landscape this year. And so I think there's a lot of interest in, the offensive linemen that are there. I'm curious. I know he took the invite, and there's not a lot of clarity about whether he's on the roster, whether he's practicing this week, but Graham Barton from Duke, like that's somebody who I know people are interested in because his measurements are going to be significant, even if he's kicking inside to center. Questions about the arm length, stuff like that. I think that the one-on-ones will be big for him if he's out there, if he's able to take advantage of that. That's not gotten a lot of clarity. But just in general, you hear a lot of scouts talking about that the offensive line play is going to be big. That was one of the things we heard too about Shrine.
Yeah.
That Shrine had a lot of, really good value guys here at offensive line on both sides that they were excited about. So offensive line focus. I think obviously people, the big thing for Penix is going to be medical. But seeing guys like Penix and Nix and some of these older quarterbacks that are going to be on display, this has been a breeding ground and a difference maker week for quarterbacks in the past. Phillip Rivers vaulted way up to the top of the draft board and the draft conversation after Senior Bowl years ago. Dak Prescott made a big impression on the Cowboys here.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so I think quarterbacks, this is always a big week for them when you can see them in this setting. Baker Mayfield, I know, had a lot of people were impressed that he showed up and competed when he did a couple years ago. So quarterback is always a big one with the guys that are out there. And we mentioned Hartman, Penix, Nix. I think this is a big week for those guys too.
Hey, Aiden O'Connell helped himself last year.
Yes, he did.
He certainly had a big one. But I am pumped about these quarterbacks because I think everybody's looking at them very differently. Bo Nix is a guy that you're seeing now in the first round in some mocks. We've been talking to Dane. Some teams might have him as the number 1, number 2 quarterback. I don't see that from Bo Nix. I've got like a 3rd round grade on him. To me, I think he was definitely helped in the offense that he was in. You don't see him reading the field a ton. It's kind of first read, boom, get the ball out. He had one of the quickest time of releases for the football in all of college football. I mean, Troy Franklin, I think, is an absolute stud. He had a ton of talent around him.
From Oregon, right?
Yeah, from Oregon.
Yeah.
So Bo Nix will be an interesting study this week because Michael Penix, to me, I think is a better prospect. I think Penix throws maybe the best deep ball that I've seen in this draft. I know Caleb Williams is just an absolute freak show as well, but I love being able to watch both of them together. And then you've got 2 family bloodlines with Luke McCaffrey and then Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son as well.
Yeah.
And I was seeing the NFL Network interviewing Brendan Rice earlier. McCaffrey's a guy just played at Rice. We talk about that level of competition. How does he do in one of these? I mean, we've seen a Cooper Kupp several years ago go and just absolutely dominate at the Senior Bowl. So that's what these are all about. Some of these guys that maybe the quarterbacks think you can get a lot from, to Bobby's point, but also some of the dudes, as I mentioned, you played at Rice, the North Dakota States, and I'm interested to see some of these bloodlines because we have a ton in this draft. It seems like more than ever. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. We talked about as well. I mean, there's so many legacy guys in this draft class.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Well, when you asked the question, Kyle, what position do you think, people are looking at? Wide receiver is pretty deep this draft, and it's interesting too because I wrote down back to normal kind of because last year we talked about it. It was so many smaller guys, and you were there was concern about the guy's size and all that stuff, and this year it's like 5'10", 5'11", 6'1". It's like it's only like a couple guys who are 5'10", 5'11". Most of these guys are over 6 foot. Big catch radiuses and things like that. So I do think this wide receiver class could be important to some teams deciding to maybe try to get over the hump and get a 2nd or 3rd guy to be able to make a difference on their teams this year.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about working here is whenever you're having normal conversations just in the building, at lunch, stuff like this pops up. And one of the conversations we had it was Nick Harris and a couple of others in the group, and we were talking about it yesterday. What happens if a 2020 situation happens where you need these other positions? You need a run stuffer. You need offensive linemen. You need a defensive end or 2 or linebackers. There are positions of need for the Cowboys, but you're looking up and you're at 24, and then all of a sudden you've got a guy that's fallen in your lap. You've got a Dunze, a Coleman, Troy Franklin from Oregon. I mean, you've got these guys falling in your lap. Do you entertain the option at wide receiver? Because you have CeeDee Lamb. Outside of that, you're bringing back Brandon Cooks. You're bringing back Jalen Tolbert. Who knows what Michael Gallup's future is in the building? Brian, would you entertain that just because of how talented this wide receiver class is yet again?
I am always about the stack.
Right.
I am always, and I will die on that hill about the stack because I feel like that if you don't window dress your board and you put those players on that board where you would take them and you have the opportunity to grab them, I'll never forget this. We were in a draft where it was the Quincy Carter draft with the Cowboys, and we didn't have a first-round pick, and we had a first-round grade on Kendrell Bell, linebacker from Georgia. First-round grade. We don't have a first-round pick. It gets to us at the 2nd round, and we took Quincy Carter. And I understand we didn't have a quarterback and all that. It's a long story how that all went. But that was our last first-round guy on the board. And Kendrell Bell ended up being AFC. Pittsburgh took him right after us, and he ended up being the AFC Defensive Rookie of the Year. And that right there always confirmed to me, like, if you trust your board and put the players where they need to be, the draft gods will bless you in a lot of ways. And so I'm always about that. If the discussion turns into, don't jump tags, if you set your board how you feel, how it goes, and you could go right a lot of the time if you just follow exactly what your board tells you to go.
And I think that could happen, especially too. Offensive line is important because teams need better offensive linemen.
Yeah.
Clearly. I mean, I'm so sorry. Down. We've seen an influx of quarterback injuries this past year, which made a huge difference. I do think that position is important. So when you talk about wide receiver, I do think that a lot of these tackles and guards might go early. Some of these top guys. So maybe you do have a wide receiver fall to you, or a running back, or something fall to you that you're like, okay, well maybe I will take this guy here.
To her point, you always hope that the quarterbacks are the ones that drive players to you.
Sure, maybe trade back.
Up there.
Yeah, could the offensive tackles drive players to you?
I think yes.
Or do you want them to fall to you, though? That's my thing. You might want a Jordan Morgan out of Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about trying.
Want a Tyler guy.
Yeah, I'd love to try and attack the offensive line in the first round. I mean, I think that's just where the meat and potatoes is of this first round. But I think, to your point, yes. I think absolutely. We're looking at what, 7, 8 offensive tackles that could go in this first round, and that's not even including some like the Graham Bartons or the Fontenot from Washington that we think could maybe kick inside and be interior players. I mean, I think Nick's right. Powers Johnson, you look at the versatility that he's got from Oregon, teams covet that. I mean, this dude's played all across the offensive line, and I mean, it's tough to watch his tape last year and put anything negative in your notes. The dude is just a clean player, and we've seen the impact. I think you can look at right now the teams that just made it to the Final Four. Center.
Yeah. You're exactly right.
And I think Travis Frederick, since he has left this Cowboys organization, and it's no disrespect to Tyler Biotish, but there's been a massive drop-off.
Sure.
And you look at some of the leaks and the issues that this offensive line has had, I think a lot of it has to do within the middle and the center position. And every quarterback you can evaluate, if you get pressure right up your face, it is going to disrupt everything you want to do offensively. Your timing, your rhythm, you're flushed out of the pocket. So I think, yes, I think teams are going to covet these offensive linemen. I think all of them are going to see them differently. I think some will look at an Amarius Mims from Georgia and be like, hey, I don't care about the lack of starts. Yeah. This dude is 20 years old. Yeah. He is a freak athlete. I can look at him and build him into an all-pro type of lineman, right? I think the same thing, maybe a Patrick Paul. We don't love him out of Houston. I think he's a little bit sloppy, a little bit top-heavy, but skill set wise, physically, he looks the part. I think everybody's going to look differently at these offensive tackles, and it's going to cause one might go way earlier than we think. You know, a Kingsley from BYU.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a guy that's playing in the Senior Bowl now.
Not going to try that last name, are you?
No, I'm not.
Suamataia.
Suamataia.
Bobby.
I mean,
well done.
that's there's so many offensive linemen. I think where they come off the board will be fascinating.
With that name, by the way, he didn't help.
Did you not nail it?
No, it is.
But he didn't help you while you needed the name.
No. Yeah. But it's okay. We got it.
No, that is the thing, though, is that if you're talking about like teams coveting offensive linemen and wanting to use that capital, because that is where like the real top heavy aspect is of this, and you know, receiver, offensive linemen, those are the guys that could be pushed down to you or whatever else, depending on how teams stack it. I do think you should covet offensive linemen though here. Like you need to be part of that discussion, and I mean that's something where they've got questions about center. Look, Zach Martin is getting older, Tyron Smith is getting older. Terrence Steele, he's here, but I mean, he's coming off of an injury. You got to see how he bounces back. So I think you can never have enough offensive linemen, especially offensive linemen with flexibility, who can kind of play multiple positions. That's something they covet. Yeah. Mike Solari covets. Yeah. And so, I think that offensive linemen should be high up on their first round consideration.
They've proven that they could take first round offensive linemen and they're plug and play guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's the one thing you could take that to the bank with these guys.
I have a question. So since we're talking about offensive line, I'm very curious about Awesome Richards still. I don't know, because I was surprised in the instances where, Tyron was out and he wasn't the next guy, in those instances. Even for them to go with Edoga before him, when we had seen, to me, enough of Edoga to know maybe that's not it
Sure.
there. So I am curious about what I do think that'll play a role in some of maybe some of their decision making with if they decide to take a tackle early. But then also too, you have Matt Waletzko who has these shoulder injuries. What do you think you're going to consistently get from him at this point? Because this seems like a reoccurring thing with him since college. I think it's a hereditary thing from my understanding. So it's like, hey, are those gentlemen going to make a difference in some of their decision making, or do you think that maybe we should be continuing to look no matter what?
I think you got to keep looking. He's a 5th round pick. Austin Richards, I mean, he was high on our list of a day 3 guy.
Yeah.
Right.
And so when they took him at the 5th round pick, that was a value there. But they've also shown, as good as they are of picking guys in the 1st round, they also aren't going to rush day 3 picks into a starting lineup either.
That's it.
And I think it's more of a developmental task for them with Austin Richards.
Okay.
Plus, they don't want to put him in a situation like Waletzko where he's having to battle through injuries. He's having to battle through certain things. Josh Ball's another example from the 2020 draft of a guy, 2021 draft, of a guy that they took on day 3. They wanted him to develop, and it hasn't necessarily worked out in their favor. They want to take their time with that guy, with Austin Richards specifically, because they've maybe been burned in the past in a situation like that.
I think you got to. I think you got to fix the center first.
Yeah,
Me too.
I'm looking at center.
That's fair.
If you had to tell me, and this is nothing to like I said, I do have. I'm with you. I do have my concerns about Austin Richards, but I think he's the one guy that I was watching from North Carolina last year when he was taken, and I remember talking to Will McClay after the draft. I said, you got value there.
Yeah.
You picked a guy because sometimes you take these kids and they might be, and no offense to directional state school, whatever, but you kind of looking for trade. This kid played at North Carolina, played at a very high level, played against really good competition, played well against good competition.
Yeah.
I think the traits are there for him to develop.
Okay.
But at center, I mean, if you want to talk about TJ Bass, I haven't seen TJ Bass play center. So that's what I'm saying. A lot of people say, well, why wouldn't you just plug Bass in at center? Or why wouldn't you just play Hoffman? Yeah, I like what you're saying, but also I'm looking at the draft right now and I see 4 guys I like better than that option.
Right.
That I know I've seen these guys play center at a very high level. I think if you address the center spot here and you fix it, you're going to fix a lot of your offensive line problems.
Preach. I agree with you 100%.
And that's going to sound like a slam to Biotish, and I mean that in no disrespect. But there are times where he is good, and there's times where he is a liability, and that is and I think they know that. I think they know that, and this it's just like you can't pass the opportunity, in my opinion, of how many good centers there are in this draft, and not address that. But maybe they will have a player in their stack that's higher than a center, and they will work it that way. And if that's the case, I admire them for doing that because they've done it before.
And maybe it is one of those offensive tackles. I would still take one of those tackles, and I'm not concerned. Because, look, Austin Richards, if he ends up being a swing tackle for you, that's an important position. I mean, we've seen
that's
that
a great value
with the
in the
Dallas
5th
Cowboys.
round, too.
Absolutely.
To find a swing tackle in the 5th.
They've struggled. I mean, you mentioned Udoga. If he's a guy that can fill that spot, I'm totally okay with that. Good for him.
Okay, Aisha, I'm going to let you take an offensive tackle or a linebacker, and they're both grades are the same on your board. And maybe their tags are touching in your stack. Either an offensive tackle or a linebacker on your board.
I'm probably going to take a tackle. I mean, especially too with linebacker. We haven't. I don't know if we've talked about it a lot, but I think the DT position didn't help you at linebacker either.
No,
this
that's
year.
a good point.
No, they did not.
Good point.
I mean, I ain't gonna. You kind of miss Carlos Watkins.
No,
Yeah,
I think
no.
you definitely did.
I thought you kind of missed Carlos Watkins. I thought even Bohanna leaving, I felt like he did some decent things over there where he was this year. I mean, so to me, I feel like personally you can get a DT and that could help out some of your linebacker stuff, even if you decide to get a guy. But your tackle stuff, baby, you got to take care of that now because it caused problems this year. But I do agree with you that center is important. And I also think it's important, too, to your point, Zach, is that Zach Martin is getting older.
Yeah.
And it's not a knock to him, but, hey, he needs somebody steady on the other side of him because he's not only dealing with Terrence Steele coming back from injury, trying to, get his things together.
Absolutely.
When your center's getting his tail kicked sometimes. And your guard's having to help out a lot. Because his awareness is there. He's aware. He knows. you want him to be able to play sound and be confident in his position and not be worried about the guy next to him consistently. So I'm also looking at that as well. But I would say tackle.
You guys feel the same way, Rule?
Yeah.
I do.
I'm the same way.
I know you said if they were rated the same. I don't have a linebacker that's a first round caliber
not
player.
yet either.
But that's what I'm saying. If they were close,
I'm taking the value.
I'm
of
still
tackle.
taking the offensive line.
Yeah.
I think that's always an area that you need to replenish. And we've seen when this team has their best opportunity, it's because they're strong at the line of scrimmage.
watch my podcast partner take a linebacker.
But
I'll be different. I'm going to take the linebacker. If they're graded the same, I'm going to take the linebacker because, yeah, you point out, like, you look at conference championship weekend, it's great center play across the board, but also the biggest difference, if you look at it, there's great linebacker play on all four of them.
That's true.
And you talk about
Queen.
You've got these issues last year. Pretty consistently, it felt like if guys just like stepping in the wrong gap or reading and reacting too slowly or reading it wrong or whatever else. And so I think that, to me, if you can get me, if you're telling me it's Powers Johnson and Edge Cooper or something like that in the second round, like, I would take Cooper at that point.
So to your point about that, though, should we be asking? Ooh, I don't want to piss nobody off. Should we be asking?
That's what the show's done for 11 years.
I'm just saying. So should we be asking? What are y'all being coached? And I'm only asking that because it's a consecutive thing. It's not just one player having these issues. I'm asking, is that something that maybe we should be wondering about? Because this is a new linebacker coach. This is a new gentleman in the room. Does that matter?
They also don't
at
have
all?
a ton of bodies there either.
I mean, the depth matters, but I also, too, do think if we're consistently seeing players take the wrong reads, be in the wrong, it could be them just doing their own thing, but also, too, we need to ask, like, what are you guys being taught? Because why are you jumping into the C gap when your assignment is A gap?
Yeah, I think that I would not. I think there's a lot you can put on coaching. I think at the end of the day, players have to make.
asking.
No, I know. I think at the end of the day, players have to make plays, and I think that when you talk about reading and reacting, like we've seen consistently, it's not just in Dallas. That is a league-wide problem. Like, people talk about league-wide how there's just a lack of quality offensive line play. Like, it's just a talent-starved position. Yeah. Nobody has enough good offensive linemen. There's routinely, how many times do we watch, it feels like half the linebackers coming out, even the ones at the top, are like, wow, he does this real well. Sometimes he's a guesser, though, and he just kind of runs in there. It's a very mentally taxing position, and I think they're two highest IQ linebackers they were without this year. The guys that they expected to carry them a little bit, Van Der Esch and even Overshown.
Yep.
Clark guesses at times. And Clark can be a good player. It's just Clark guesses sometimes. That was something that they had happen with Devin Harper when he was here. Like, it's an issue, I think, league-wide, the ability to read, react, identify all of those things. And Dallas has been hit by it just like anybody else has. So coaching obviously comes into play at some point in that. But to me, I think a lot of that is just players get what they put in. Like they're going to get out of it the work that they put into this.
Yeah.
Why is Peyton Wilson at North Carolina State so banged up?
I love him. I mean,
love this guy,
I'm with you too.
And I'm like, and he's just so banged up.
Nick told me he was looking good out there, though, in senior.
Of course. He's just a football player. He looks incredible.
And he's had double-digit surgeries, I mean, you're just like, you just shake your head. But you put on the tape, and all that guy does is make plays.
He's making every single play.
Every single play. But, that's the dangers now that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
The medicals.
The risk versus reward.
Yeah.
You nailed it, though. I think Bobby mentioned the IQ. You're lacking your general at the linebacker position.
Okay.
You brought up Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen was not the same player until Roquan Smith got
exactly
to Baltimore.
Right. Yeah.
Patrick Queen was a guy that wasn't living up to a first-round draft potential. They were wondering, should we even pick up a fifth-year option there? Wow. Roquan Smith comes. He starts wearing the green dot. He's calling the defense. All of a sudden, Patrick Queen can play free now. Yeah. I think you get a guy that can do that. Damone Clark's a different player, too.
It's an LSU thing.
Maybe
That's
it
what
is.
it is. We're not the smartest guys.
I mean,
Please.
that's why I'm looking at Tommy Eichenberg from Ohio State.
Oh, jeez, yes.
That's a field general.
Yeah.
He's getting everybody lined up.
Yeah.
He can read. He can diagnose. Now, athletically, going sideline to sideline, he doesn't have fluid hips necessarily. He might have some things that kind of hold him back. That's why he'll slide. But mentally, he's there. Cedric Ray from North Carolina, I love it. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. from Clemson. These are guys that know exactly what they're looking at. They're film junkies. You can tell the football IQ.
And there's an element to that I think Dallas could help from, but there are a couple other ways that they could look at their players too. When we come back, one of our Twitter on the 20 questions has to do with what type of draft theme could we see from that team across the hallway when we come back in a matter of moments. You're watching The Draft Show presented by Miller Lite.
I'm Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
And they snap it to Prescott, who looks right. It's not there. He escapes left. He'll run for a first down.
Just like football, when it comes to crypto, it's important to have a team you can trust. With blockchain.com, I know I'm in good hands. Since 2011, they've been trusted by millions around the world to buy, sell, and trade cryptocurrency.
Prescott's going to run this himself. Run it up the middle, and he scores.
Whether you're new to crypto or an active trader, they've got you covered. What are you waiting for? Get started at blockchain.com.
I'm Darren Woodson, former Dallas Cowboy player and Super Bowl champion. When I played in the NFL at a high level, I relied on my vision to see the field. As I started getting older, I noticed my vision wasn't as good, and I was getting frustrated from wearing my glasses all day. I went to Laser Care Eye Center, and Dr. G talked about all the options. Thanks to technology and Laser Care Eye Center, I can see near, far, and between. Don't fumble your vision any longer. Visit them at dfweyes.com and tell them Darren sent you. They got me back on my game.
In a stressful world, Lincoln provides balance and calm amidst the chaos by creating sanctuaries that move you through the world with ease. Our vehicles make your time richer and more uplifting with human-centric design, intelligent technology, and powerful performance. As the official luxury vehicle of the Dallas Cowboys, driving a Lincoln is just another way to show your team pride. Experience our full lineup of luxury vehicles, including the Corsair, Aviator, Navigator, and Nautilus at Lincoln.com.
Hi, I'm Danny McCray, Dallas Cowboys alumni player here with Smoothie King. And Smoothie King wants to ask you, what's that sound? That's the sound of us magically transforming our smoothie bowls into 2 new decadent flavors. Dig into a cool acai or pitaya bowl, handcrafted with crunchy, purely Elizabeth granola, fresh strawberries, and finished with a velvety chocolate hazelnut drizzle. Perfect for breakfast, lunch, or anytime you want to munch. And that's the sound of you making them disappear. Smoothie bowls, now in 2 new decadent flavors. Only at Smoothie King, the official smoothie of the Dallas Cowboys.
This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
Welcome back into the Draft Show presented by Miller Lite. Taste you can depend on. This segment is brought to you by your Texas Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas. Brian Broaddus, Aisha Morrison, Bobby Belt, Zach Wolchuk. I'm Kyle Yeomans, and Chris Beam's in the back. He's getting ready to press a button because it's time for some Twitter on the 20.
Twitter on the 20.
Sorry. There you go.
Did it do it?
That was Beam.
Oh,
We did it.
It didn't do it, but that's okay.
Okay.
Luis
It
says
gave out.
It did.
All these years, it just gave out.
It was done. Is this year's draft theme to get more physical players? If you were the front office, what would you do in your approach? We'll start with Bobby Belt on that one.
Look, I mean, I think they had their physicality draft a couple of years ago. And I think they feel like they got those guys. I think they feel like toughness and physicality they got with Tyler Smith, they got with Jake Ferguson, they got with Sam Williams. I think that was a big point for them a couple years ago.
Worked out pretty well for you.
It did. Yeah, no, and I think that this year, I think they would say that the physicality thing has been more overblown than tape showed for most of the year. I think they felt like they were a pretty reasonably physical football team for a lot of the year. And I'd probably agree with that. It was not the same issue you saw the first time they lost to San Francisco. That was a team that had a lot of trouble with physicality. Every game that year they ran into that. I think it's always a consideration. It's always included in there. I think the mental makeup, I think they want some guys who are a little nasty, and that Jake Ferguson energy that gets up and kind of annoys people and things like that. I think they like that. I think they want more guys like that. And so I think that's a trait they'll look for. I don't think it's, hey, this is the primary focus. This is how we're this is the primary focus as we stack our board. But I think that that's going to be an important trait that if it's put in the scouting report, that's going to stand out to people here.
What do you think?
Why y'all look at me?
Because it's your turn.
Because you're on this show.
Is it my turn?
It's your turn. It's your turn.
My turn? Oh, I thought we was going
we want to go. Hey, do your thing, girl.
Yeah, no. I do think it is important. We talk about the mental makeup of some of these guys. I kind of do want some guys that don't know no better. I really do. And part of me is just because this playing for this team does come with a lot of mental, emotional, different strain, different pressure. I definitely want to see if there's some gentlemen that they can bring in here who just love football and want to go play like a Stickers, who's just trying to prove himself and has that rawness to him and that edginess to him. To your point, I thought Jake Ferguson was a really good, because there's times you would look at Jake Ferguson make a play and he had the defense hype on the sideline.
Yes.
And I do think that matters when you're talking about temperament and once you get hit in the mouth, how you respond. And I think that's the biggest thing is I'm looking for I'm looking for them to have guys that respond better to getting hit in the mouth, because I felt like every time they got hit in the mouth this past year, it was a struggle to get back in that mode, and it was deflating at times as well.
Yeah, and I will say I think that is a massive area where they missed Trayvon Diggs this year.
Yeah.
Was they missed that intensity, they missed that edge. He was a tone setter for them in the secondary. And I think that when we talk about, like, jumping back a little bit, when we talk about resetting center and doing different things, like, you have to have an awareness that walking away from Tyler Biadasz means also walking away from generally kind of your enforcer on the offensive line and the guy who has some of that edge and plays with that intensity. For a team that wants more of that, like, I'm not saying that he's come back, but for a team that wants more of that, like, you're going to have to consider that when you're looking at these centers too, is how you're going to make that up if you're saying goodbye to him.
Temperament, yeah.
And that's everything that I'm looking at with these offensive linemen. You know, the more grit, the more toughness, the more I'm playing through the whistle, the more I'm knocking your face in the dirt. We're going to get after it, down after down.
Zach wants a bleep
That's
hole.
what I'm watching.
That's what you want.
And you
want
got
a guy
that in
that's
these
just gonna
centers.
come in.
So I know Tyler Biadasz in training camp don't pick a fight with me. The problem is we're seeing inconsistency in Tyler Biadasz getting overpowered and bullied at times. And can you upgrade that on the football field week in to week out? And I think some of these guys do give you some of that same play temperament that a Biadasz does, and that you want. I think you're right. He is one of your guys along with Tyler Smith on the offensive line. But I think a lot of these tackles that we're watching, a lot of these guards and centers have that. That's certainly something that I'm looking at, because I think one draft, you're not going to fix your toughness issue. I think that's something you commit to. That is something that you want overall. You're looking as players that you're drafting year in and year out. That's the kind of culture and temperament I want in my football team. I think you got to keep just going to that well.
Give me the high IQ football player.
Right.
Because when this defense busts, it's because they bust coverages or they bust assignments or they do stuff that they're not supposed to do, what you were talking about earlier. Aisha, we're jumping in gaps. You know, knowing damn good and well you've got A gap and you're playing, all of a sudden you're standing in the C gap because you're guessing. You know? I think these guys are tough, but give me the guys that make those instinctive plays. You know, I need more of a Sean Lee. I need a smart, tank. I need a smart, calculating, assignment sound player that I know that's going to not bust in key situations. It seemed like to me that Green Bay game was nothing but busted coverages, busted assignments. I can understand getting physically beat on plays. But when you prep for a game and get ready and you see a formation, your assignment's to do this, and you completely don't do that, then I can't play you. I can't put you on the field because you just gave up a 47-yard pass because you didn't carry the guy in man coverage. You know, you could be tough all you want, but if you don't know what you're doing, then that's a problem. So I need more of those Sean Lee tough, but also that football IQ guy.
Sounds like you guys need Javon Bullard from Georgia. In that back end.
Yeah.
Generally your safety group. You'll be fixed.
You have to take him in the first?
No. I think that you could probably go day 2 on him.
That's good. I like that.
I think the one thing I said about him.
When's the last time we just said
He's my favorite guy in the entire draft.
Oh, he's your pet cat.
He's my dude.
You're putting the sticker on it?
Yeah, I love Javon Bullard.
You know who this guy is?
Who is it?
He's Petrie, the kid from Baylor.
Jalen Petrie?
Oh,
yeah,
my God.
This is who this kid is.
That's what you think about him? I ain't watched him yet.
I think he's the best.
Petrie's turned out pretty good.
Yeah. Look, I'll take him pound for pound best DB in the entire class.
Barnacles.
I love him.
He's one of those. He's one of those. If it moves, he'll strike it, guys. You know, the ball skills are there. I mean, he's got a high football IQ. You're absolutely right about that. He's short, though. He's a 5'11" guy. What did he measure at the Senior Bowl? I'm sure that they've got.
I need to check my guys.
Yeah, I'm sure that I had that somewhere in my life here.
The spreadsheet's getting updated this week. All right. With that all being said, here's our second question for
Twitter on the 20.
He was 5'10" and a half. He was 5'10".
Hey, short.
Don't make the Winfield Jr. mistake.
No, he's 5'10", 197. Now
he's okay.
He will knock the you know what out of you.
He's physical, downhill player.
Colin asked, given the position strengths in the draft, offensive line, wide receiver as a couple examples, which positions do you think Dallas should be more aggressive at upgrading through free agency as opposed to relying on the draft?
It's a draft show, sir.
DT.
Well, it's mostly to open up position-wise.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm totally kidding.
I think it is a good question, though, because with free agency coming before the draft, you're going to know some of the holes that are remaining in your roster.
How much are they really going to jump into that?
Defensive tackle, please.
Yeah, I mean, how much are they going to, Bobby? How much are they going to jump into that?
So I mean, I think that's they every year will create contingencies.
Sure.
Like every year they create contingencies across so that they can go best player available. I think if you're talking about actually having to look, I mean, you got to free up cap space to begin with because right now you're projected to be 20 million plus over the cap. I think the thing for them, I would wonder if they would look at it and say, like, obviously they're going to have interest in some linebackers. They've been thin there. But I would wonder if they would look at it and say, because they want guys who are going to read and react correctly, they want IQ guys, if they would look and say, linebackers more of something where I'd like to have seen it on tape at the NFL level. Like, I would like to see that this guy's got experience, knows what he's doing. Let's go get this. Let me go get a veteran here to do this. So I wonder if some of those areas where they feel like they're particularly maybe IQ deficient and I don't want it to sound like dumb or anything, but just like they're not as high up on football IQ and the ability to read and react on some of those spots. I wonder if that's where they would look more to replenish with veterans and create a base. That way they're not having to guess with rookies. Because like you said, when you talked about Awesome Richards and how they kept going back to Udoka, like coaches are always going to go back to the veterans.
Yes.
Coaches are always going to bank on the veterans. And so if they've got somewhere where they feel like the football IQ, the mental processing, stuff like that is deficient, I think that's where you're more likely to see them dabble in free agency. So linebacker, safety, maybe some of those areas.
Could you say center there too? Because you're talking about Tyler Biadasz and knowing his intensity level and knowing what they've seen.
I think if you ask some people around here, I think they would say that they think Brock Hoffman could start at center in the NFL.
Yeah.
I don't know that they'd say like
played well.
I don't know if they'd say
He's got an edge to him too.
Yeah,
There's
he
your
did.
edge.
I don't know that
they both do.
I don't know that they would say like this is our long-term solution, but if that's like they would, I think they'd feel comfortable with that as a contingency. Is like, hey, if we get wiped out, we can roll with this. I mean, I think if Zach Martin had held out, like Brock Hoffman was starting at guard to begin the year last year. Wow. And so I think they really do believe in him, and he's somebody who could be part of their contingency plan at center.
I get that. If we're talking about free agency, I would definitely be looking at what veteran defensive tackle you could get in free agency. And I only say that because love me some Hankins to infinity. However, when he's gotten injured, it's mattered for this team, and it's unfortunately it's happened at like key times. So when he's come back, like I felt like he looked almost the same, but it's made a difference. But you also didn't get much from your rotation.
No.
And we're talking about linebacker, baby. They getting climbed on consistently for a reason. Yeah. And so to me, you know, obviously we're on Mozzie Watch and all that stuff. I think also too, you need proven talent there to move forward and kind of stabilize the middle of your defense, because a lot of this jumping out of gaps and compensating, a lot of that to me was because of the middle of that defense not being shored up. So that's where I would be looking if I were, you know, important like that, to be looking for how to go forward and improve this team and outside of the draft.
Those are two spots, linebacker and defensive tackle, that have some good names.
Can I interest anybody in a veteran running back for $3 million?
Sounds good.
Ooh, I want to hear.
I'm in.
Because I think we've talked a little bit about this draft class at running back, and there's certainly some guys that we like, and that'll probably go
maybe pair
third
draft with a pair.
I think so. I don't know that there's a running back like we looked at last year with the Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. Where you're like, I can hand my backfield over to this guy and be good to go.
Even Jahmyr Gibbs was a 12th overall pick, and they still paired him with Montgomery, and it worked out in Detroit.
Like Jalen Wright from Tennessee, I'm a big fan of. I mean, there's Ray Davis from Kentucky is right now in the Senior Bowl. I think there's definitely options. I mean, if you wanted to go with the Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson from Florida State, but I think all these guys could benefit from a veteran with them.
Shrine Bowl veteran people here.
Oh, yeah.
What are Louisville running back look like? Isaac Garrido?
I saw him.
It's Garrido.
Garrido's a great name.
He's a little undersized, right? Am I tripping?
I had him at 6'1", 225.
He's that big? He didn't look that big on the field.
Yeah,
he looks
maybe
beetle.
that's the measurements I was working on. I'll tell you what, man. He's a transfer from Wisconsin. Gotta hate when I can't pronounce these kids' names the right way. Is it Did I say it right?
I'm looking it up currently.
But
I got it.
Girardelli.
Please. Please.
But man, there's nothing. I mean, you watch him play against USC, and you watch him play against Miami, Boston College, Kentucky. This guy is a kind of a versatile player.
Yes.
And you could throw it to him. He can run it. You have to get bodies to him. I mean, he is a zone runner when it comes to press the hole and then go. And I was really, really interested. I know Bobby, we were talking about some names last night of people that might be, but this guy is a finisher. He was from Louisville, number 23, and he's going to get north and south quick. I love his toughness. I love his ability to catch the football, and I love the traits about him for that because he's the downhill guy. So he might fit into that third, fourth round type of a back for somebody. But I didn't know if he did anything for you guys.
No, he stood out to me. He stood out to me as a receiver.
Yeah.
That's where I noticed him. It's
Right.
like, oh, okay, this dude can run some routes.
Yeah.
And I liked his hands were soft. He was definitely very explosive when he has the ball in his hands. To your point, he can get in the open field and make plays and make people take bad angles. I noticed him yesterday. Yeah. And I mean, because they used.
He looked short to you though in real life.
He looked lit. I thought he was little.
Huh. Yeah.
I swear, I promise you, was like when I saw him, I was like, oh.
We'll get the measurements on him though. But
if you say he's a bigger human, then he's a bigger human.
That's the numbers they had on him was 6'1", 225. And yeah, that's what they had. But
they had him at 6 foot at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But I think that's exactly what they had him at Louisville. So that's probably going to go down though.
Yeah.
I think he's probably more 6 foot, 5'11".
Like I say,
he's wide though.
It sounds like he's filled
No,
out.
he's strong.
Yeah, that's the thing
watch
with Ray
him- no, you
Davis,
watch
smaller
him
guy, but
run.
stocky.
You watch him run. I mean, he
on,
is
Ray.
super productive when he gets the opportunity to carry. I mean, he carries the ball with some power to his game. So kind of takes him a second to get going, but once he's going, boom, he's to and through.
Yeah, he stood out to me too.
All right, let's take our second break. When we come back, I want to hear who's the best you've watched this week. It could be Shrine Bowl in person. It could be Senior Bowl. It could be just general film, general tape. Yeah, give it all to me when we come back with more of the Draft Show right after this.
Hi, Drew Pearson, former Dallas Cowboy and now Pro Football Hall of Famer here. If you're struggling with your vision and tired of those contacts and glasses, don't throw a Hail Mary. Go where I went. Laser Care Eye Center, the official LASIK partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Drew, thank you so much for trusting us with your vision correction procedure. At Laser Care Eye Center, we offer 6 different vision correction procedures to help patients see.
Check them out at dfweyes.com. Tell them Drew sent you. Hood hood.
In a stressful world, Lincoln provides balance and calm amidst the chaos by creating sanctuaries that move you through the world with ease. Our vehicles make your time richer and more uplifting with human-centric design, intelligent technology, and powerful performance. As the official luxury vehicle of the Dallas Cowboys, driving a Lincoln is just another way to show your team pride. Experience our full lineup of luxury vehicles, including the Corsair, Aviator, Navigator, and Nautilus at Lincoln.com.
I'm Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
And they snap it to Prescott, who looks right. It's not there. He escapes left. He'll run for a first down.
Just like football, when it comes to crypto, it's important to have a team you can trust. With blockchain.com, I know I'm in good hands. Since 2011, they've been trusted by millions around the world to buy, sell, and trade cryptocurrency.
Prescott's going to run this himself. Run it up the middle, and he scores.
Whether you're new to crypto or an active trader, they've got you covered. What are you waiting for? Get started at blockchain.com.
Hi, I'm Danny McCray, Dallas Cowboys alumni player here with Smoothie King. And Smoothie King wants to ask you, what's that sound? That's the sound of us magically transforming our smoothie bowls into 2 new decadent flavors. Dig into a cool acai or pitaya bowl, handcrafted with crunchy, purely Elizabeth granola, fresh strawberries, and finished with a velvety chocolate hazelnut drizzle. Perfect for breakfast, lunch, or anytime you want to munch. And that's the sound of you making them disappear. Smoothie bowls, now in 2 new decadent flavors. Only at Smoothie King, the official smoothie of the Dallas Cowboys.
This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
Back here on the Draft Show, the 99th annual East-West Shrine Bowl will feature 130 of the nation's top NFL draft prospects Thursday, February 1st at the Star in Frisco. Tickets as low as $20 are available at shrinebowl.com. Proceeds benefit Shriners Children's. So plenty of time for you. And by plenty of time, I mean you've got like 48 hours. Get your tickets. Come on now. Get there, shrinebowl.com. We'll be out there Thursday night. That'll be a lot of fun. Getting to finally see the game. Get to see it in person inside the Ford Center at the Star in Frisco. All right, final segment. Zach Wolchuk, Bobby Belt, Brian Broaddus, Aisha Morrison. I'm Kyle Yeomans. Who's the best you've watched this week? And Aisha, you've been out in the Ford Center watching Shrine Bowl practice. We're going to start with you. Who you seen?
I think one of the best players, consistent players I've seen this week is Mason McCormick, guard out of South Dakota State. He's 6'5", Lord, he's 3'10", 315. I don't know who lying. Somebody lying. And I was just so interested in how versatile he was because, you know, in these practices, they move guys from right guard, left guard, center. They want to see if you can – hey, yo, dude. He played all these spots and looks sturdy. He also, too, he can fly to the second level. He climbs really well. He has great foot quickness for his size. And he also, too, he times his anchor really well to me, is when he dropped that ass.
He drops that ass.
When he drops that ass, y'all, he definitely puts a lot of stress on these defensive ends. But also, too, when he clamps on you, you're pretty done. The balance is there for him, and the hand placement is consistently really strong with him. I mean, he's wrestling. He was wrestling. If you look at some of the film from the one-on-ones, just aware as well. I thought he had a really good week, and I think people are going to be looking at him, especially since we talked about offensive line. Versatility matters, but hey, he's versatile, and he's shown he can do it. He can do it, and he also played multiple positions in college as well, so he stood out to me a lot this week.
I like Christian Mahogany, the guard from Boston College.
Dude,
Yes.
he's offensive line kick.
This dude, I'm on an O-line kick, man. You know me. I like my big uglies in the trenches, man. But this guy has played both sides, left and right guard. So, you know, you can go ahead and switch him if you need to, but he fires off the ball in the run game. He plays with aggression. And when you watch him pull, this guy is violent off the edge. And you watched him against Florida State, and he ended up getting some reps 1v1 against Verse, especially where he gets pulled. And Jared Verse was like, please no. I don't want anything to do with you, sir. And I love Jared Verse. I think he might be my number 2 edge in this class. But he's got long arms, not the quickest lateral movement, but he's a guy that can get to the second level, nasty in the run game, uses arm extension well to keep defenders off of him in pass pro. He's another guy, not a good base to him. But I love the way once he gets latched onto, he's got a firm anchor. He's very, very difficult to get off. Can win in a phone booth, finish his blocks, love his play temperament. I think that's a kid that's made himself some money here over the weekend at the East West Shrine Bowl.
What you got, Brian?
I'm going to go for a player that I just scouted this week, and I'm trying to decide. The broadest boys are split. My son thinks this guy is Calvin Ridley. I think this guy's Jordan Addison. Oh. It's Xavier Worthy, the wide receiver from the University of Texas.
Okay, let's go.
And Bennett says he's Calvin Ridley. He says he's a plus route runner with breakout speed. I like what my son's saying there. But he plays outstanding in all areas. He's a big-time receiver. He's a big-time punt returner. He'll wow you with his ability to play in space. He can easily make the first man miss, no problem. He's a natural playmaker at best when you get him the ball. He made one of the prettiest receptions I've ever seen in the Alabama game over Arnold, the corner there that we really, really like.
Yeah.
Just goes right over. I mean, he tracked the ball. This guy could beat you in numerous ways. He runs slants. He hits you with the deep ball. He's a fluid athlete. He's got elite explosiveness and speed. So if you're looking at wide receivers and you think you might see a Jordan Addison, who was a USC last year, and the Minnesota Vikings took, this is a very similar player to that type of guy with Xavier Worthy from the University of Texas.
You know, it's interesting. You bring up University of Texas. I've got a receiver from the University of Texas as well. San Antonio, UTSA.
Okay.
Instead,
Come
I've
on.
got Josh Cephas from UTSA. Big, lanky wide receiver. He's been out here at the Shrine Bowl. They have him listed at, where did it just go? I just had it. 6'3", 185 pounds. So he's got some length to him. I liked his route running. One of the things that I didn't like on film whenever he was playing against Conference USA and American opponents as they made the jump this year, he was limited in the route tree. He didn't have a whole lot going on in terms of the route tree. Turns it around. He comes out here. He's running curls. He's running seams.
Yes.
Great. Got it. But then he's got some out route to him. He's got some slants to him. He's been able to run those digs well. There was one rep yesterday where he ran really kind of an out and up and just got around his guy, built a ton of separation. Quarterback just completely missed him. Just a terrible throw. And so I like what he's done. It's been kind of limited in terms of the quarterback play in the Shrine Bowl specifically. I think he's got a legitimate shot to go, let's say, early day 3.
Yeah, got a 4th-round grade on him.
Yeah, I think I'd probably put him early 5th, if just based off of it early. Running, where I'm going to see what he runs in the 40 and probably thinking maybe late 4.5s, not the speediest guy, but he builds separation off of separation, route running, and I think that's something that I really
works
like.
back to the football really well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Certainly a yak guy, yard after catch. He can make plays in space. The one thing about him, and for his size, I was a little surprised, he needs to get a little cleaner off press coverage at the line of scrimmage.
He doesn't. He wins at the line of scrimmage, but not with physicality.
It takes a little bit.
He doesn't waste steps. That's what I like about it.
He'll engage a little too much with the hand fighting, which is fine. It's like he wants to get physical. He doesn't shy, but it's like, no, dude, I need you to get up the field and get in your route here. I need you to quit playing pitter-patter with the corner here because the corner is fine with that. I'll go ahead and disrupt the timing here. He needs to just get up the field and go. But I love Joshua Cephas. The one thing about him, he did run into some DWI issues in college. I'm sure people are going to want to check some character concerns there.
And you'll have conversations. That's what, I mean, honestly, if Dallas, let's just say Dallas is looking at him, they're having him here. You can have him at the
100%,
combine.
and that might just be a maturity thing.
You'll bring him down. You'll make the trip down I-35. You'll have plenty of conversations.
We've all made some dumb decisions.
So, yeah, I think there's
you want to talk about him?
No.
I don't.
Oh my God.
What's the dumbest thing you've ever done?
Let's not talk about it.
No.
You have anybody, Bobby?
Yeah, so I've already I've been running through offensive line this week, and so I finally got around to seeing the guy we talked about earlier today, Suamata Ia, and my gosh, like that to me, that guy's going to be a star to me. I think he's going to be a dominant player at the next level. To be honest, he looks like he's built in a lab. The problems with him right now are, I think, technical things that are reflected from being such a young player. He just turned 21 about a week ago, I think, but he's got mental processing stuff. He obviously gets his pad level too high at times. At times he's so nasty and intense. He wants to just like blow everybody off the ball. It causes some overeagerness at times. I think that causes him to miss on times. But you're talking about a guy with the type of wingspan, the ability to push guys upfield. The ability, when you talk about here in Dallas, when we're just looking at like guys wanting to improve the run game, getting up to the second level, being able to pull, do some different things, I think he's got special ability to do that. And this is somebody who, while there's mental processing stuff that you have some concerns about when you watch it, I think what you do see though is natural instinct and feel. Mm-hmm. And so to me, I think typically whenever I've watched players in the past who have a natural feel and have natural instincts, I think that those other questions about reading and reacting, things like that, are fixable. They tend to get fixed. Colton Miller was like that. Colton Miller was a guy who had feel and instinct, but technique-wise was a mess. Yeah. And some of his processing was a mess, but it projected out because he had natural instinct.
Man, I think you got this.
Again?
Say the name again.
Suamata Ia.
Suamata Ia, BYU.
Okay.
He's I think, man, I watched him against Texas and Texas Tech. He was much better against Tech than he was against Texas. And I think
going up against that defensive
line.
I
think Bobby's got him right. I think he'll need to coordinate his hands and his feet better.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's something he's going to have to work on, putting himself in better pass blocking positions, because he gets a little lungy and he gets top heavy. But he can be tough to deal with.
He needs to trust his strength more, don't you think?
Yeah, he's a massive
strong
guy.
Yeah,
I mean, he is a massissive guy.
6'6",
I don't get the
320.
lunging out of position with him. It's tough, but I mean, he didn't allow a sack and 361 pass block snaps 2 years ago.
Yeah,
I mean, the dude's steady.
Yeah.
There's a lot to love about this offensive line class. I love it whenever we're bringing. I mean, you're thinking he's a star. Is he a first-round grade?
Yeah, no, he's first-round grade for me.
I think he nailed the awareness. Like, you can tell stunts and blitz pickups. He knows exactly where he needs to be.
But there's growth, too, with a lot of these offensive linemen, because they have the size, they have the ability, but then there's little knocks here and there, but they're all teachable knocks. Yeah. That's what I think this offensive line class stands out for me, at least out of the ones in the past couple of years. All right, we will be back on Thursday. What was that?
Something happened?
Nothing. I'll bring up the center later.
You'll bring it up? Bring it up later?
It's a nice tease.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe Thursday.
Got a couple days to deliver on that.
Yeah. We'll be back Thursday. More Shrine Bowl practices, more Senior Bowl practices, more film to break down coming up at 11 Central Time. Bobby, it was great getting you back on the show today.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bobby.
We'll have Nick Harris out there as well from Senior Bowl practice in Mobile, Alabama. For Chris Beam in the back, Bobby Belt, Zach Wolchuk, Brian Broaddus, Aisha Morris, and I'm Kyle Yeoman saying so long from the Draft Show. We'll see you on Thursday.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?